Welcome to Yield Today with Dallin Candland. I'm here with Parker Kane, beatboxer, podcast, host of Upbeat, which is we'll talk a little bit more about that. That hasn't had an episode in a while, but we'll talk about that and just fellow Pizza Hut guy. We just have a lot to talk about. I love Parker. Excited to have you on, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited. I know we're gonna riff, and there's gonna be some good gold nuggets here. So
Yeah,
looking
no
forward to
doubt.
it.
No doubt. Well, I think there's always the possibility of something beautiful happening when you're doing like really, really good things. And I think your content really magnetized me to like some different ideas and different people that really helped me out when I got my start in podcasting. So let's start there. Like when you were struggling to like find your voice, how did your podcast like help you have your voice out there? How that built you up?
Yeah, I think having a podcast really helped me, especially with building a network. I didn't know at the time I started my podcast just for context for people who haven't heard of me or who don't know me. I was in college and I was kind of in a bubble a little bit and didn't realize that I had access to people anywhere. And initially, when I started a podcast, I was thinking of in person interviews with strictly local people. But I kind of through the pandemic and everything realized like, okay, everything's going virtual. I can talk to anybody. They're just one Instagram message away, they're just one LinkedIn message away from talking to me, just like you and I are talking right now, Dallin. So it helped me realize that I could have a network bigger than my little bubble that I was in, and it made me excited to grow that and just meet new people and have conversations. Kind of second to that, and I'll kind of wrap up the topic right there with this part because it's kind of all there is. But um, at the time too, I was really struggling with depression, and sometimes it was hard to keep going. Sometimes I had days that were just an absolute nightmare, and I was wondering how am I even making it through this? And hopping on a 30-minute call with some big time entrepreneur who could uplift me and motivate me just like kickstarted me into action again. So it was a good motivating factor for me too. And notice I haven't brought up money once. Like podcasting, there are so many benefits that aren't just tied down to money. And for some people it could be motivating them to start a business. It could be motivating them to just get out of bed the next day with a better morning routine. Whatever it is, if you've got a podcast and you're interviewing people on the regular, you're just going to have that extra pep in your step.
Yeah, lately I've been trying to do at least two a week, and that feels pretty good as far as like being able to reach out to somebody and talk with them and then being able to do that the next day. And lately, like the guest list, I look at it and I'm like, yo, we got Parker, we got all these other people, and I'm going to be interviewing Stu Draper in a little bit too. And I'm like, this is really cool. So it definitely is sweet. And I wanted to go to something you said at your Power to Become talk when I was still at BYU. Wouldn't be sure. I mean, it was 2018, so maybe like right after like second semester or so. You said anybody from Rexburg can like get big. You like told your story about the McDonald's cup and stuff, and I think we'd be a little remiss to not talk about that a little bit. But I think it's also important to talk about you. Like you were really like struggling and needing to have your voice heard. Like what does that feel like?
Yeah, like to have my voice heard like in the podcast and stuff.
Yeah, just in general, and then also with your growing up. I mean, you grew up in a family with a lot of music talent and you wanting to sing and get in it, and then it just was kind of
Okay.
shut down.
Yeah, yeah. So I grew up in a kind of small family, just mom, dad, me, and my sister. And mom, dad, and sister were really great singers. And all growing up, I I tried. I tried to sing. I tried to fit in well with my family in that way, but singing just wasn't my thing. Um, since then, I've learned to sing, and I've spent a lot of time kind of sharpening that axe. But at the time, it wasn't going well. So I tried to figure out what I could do to fit in, and beatboxing is just what I could do that others couldn't, and it didn't just magically come, like I had to work at it, but there was an element of a natural ability, like someone starting might try it and hate it, but I started it and was like, okay, I'm kind of decent. I can make this work. I could get better at it. So I became very passionate about beatboxing and kind of jumped in musically with my family in that way, and then just never stopped. I just kept doing that all the time. Um, and it helped me realize that, as weird as someone's talents might be, you should still pursue them. Like if you're passionate about something and if it is an uplifting thing for you and for others, um, it's worth pursuing full-heartedly.
Yeah, I think it's really important to recognize that no rep is like is not contributing or not helping. They all kind of come together in this link and in this chain.
Well, and
And
if you don't mind me jumping in too, like one thing I really like to, it's, I think an analogy is a lot of the time, but for me, passions are breadcrumbs from a loving God and Heavenly Father. That's just how I see it. So for me, it started kind of with music and with beatboxing, but that was just like one breadcrumb that I picked up and it led me to more. And so I feel like if you never pick up the breadcrumb, if you never try those things, maybe it's not what works out in the long run. But if you never tried it, then you may have never uncovered the next thing, the next thing you were supposed to do. So, like, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be doing any podcasting stuff. I wouldn't have any of the things I do now if I never, like, kind of scratched that itch that was beatboxing. So, the more breadcrumbs you pick up, the closer you get to whatever the ultimate destination, whatever that is.
yeah, well, I knew it was going to come back here. It's like impossible. I mean, this podcast isn't necessarily just for conversations about God. It's about business and self-care and things of that nature. But that is generally how our paths kind of crossed, was Power to Become and me reaching out to you over Facebook and you being like, hey, just keep up the good things you're doing. If it's good stuff, I mean, you don't have to worry about doing good stuff. I mean, that is what God wants us to do. Like, obviously he is looking out for us from the long-term perspective, but he also wants to enjoy what we have right now. And that's where I do really like where my podcast is right now, as far as like celebrating the journey. I feel like that message alone has brought me a lot of peace of mind. And it says it in the scriptures about how God is rejoicing at us taking steps forward.
Yeah, he wouldn't give us those interests for no reason. you know um if what you are passionate about, like I said, is a good thing, is an uplifting thing, is going to be a helpful thing for you, for other people, that's something he's gifted you with for a reason. He wants you to pick up that breadcrumb and he wants you to see where it takes you. He, like you said, he's there cheering you on along the way, and obviously sees the long term, and we don't. But we're not going to get there if we're not pursuing stuff.
Yeah, yeah. There's times like when I was working at the potato farm and we'd be listening to the episode of John Jay the Rich and about his dog and some other stuff. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, those are special memories. Yeah, I just think it's really important just to speak kindly to ourselves in these matters, because we don't really know what we're going to be doing down the road. And I think just your story of being at BYUI and just trying so many things, I admire it so much. Do you want to go into you trying to get into like nursing and what that kind of was like and how that led to the McDonald's Cup?
Yeah. So and first of all, I appreciate your kind words, and it makes me happy to know that my podcast episodes at the time were reaching you and helping you. Not all of us are lucky enough to have those full circle moments where you get to talk with someone who directly was impacted by what you do. Those those numbers, man, you might see 10 views on something and you might, let it go right over your head like, "Oh, that one didn't go anywhere." But that could be 10 people that were really impacted by what you do, and you just don't necessarily have that full circle confirmation, you know what I mean? So this kind of an opportunity is special, and I just wanted to put that out there that I appreciate that. But yeah, in college, the I was originally pursuing nursing school, and I wanted to be a nurse anesthetist specifically. And that's mainly because I grew up in a family with a single mom. So I know earlier in the podcast I'd mentioned dad, mom, sister, me. But my parents divorced when I was young, and that was it was when I was like 8 or 9 years old, and I really, it was then when I really latched on to beatboxing. Like, that was something that was a constant in my life that could get me through things. And yeah, my parents split up. My dad moved away. We ended up moving states too to go live with my grandparents. And anyway, lived most of my life with a single mom and not having much money. And I never technically knew we didn't have much money because my mom was such a baller and like just did everything she could for us, you know. But she always told me, get a job that's going to make money, like a for sure money in an essential type job that's never going away. And sometimes I think back like, oh, I should have listened to her, but then sometimes I'm just like, yeah, but I was dying inside, like that you got to kind of find a way to check all the boxes and do what fulfills you and what's going to help other people. But for me, nursing, man, I loved it. I was passionate about it, but my school smarts just weren't there. Like, I don't know if I just have a hard time uh paying attention or undiagnosed like ADD or ADHD or something. Like, I really just don't do school well at all. And getting through those hard nursing classes was like, it was impossible. I was trying my best. You can call my mom up right now and ask her how I was doing back then. I was giving it my all, and time after time after time, and sometimes the same courses, I was just bombing them. I was D's and F's like all the time. And so nursing wasn't probably wasn't in my cards, right? But more than that, like, it just was, I was going down a path that wasn't filling my cup, and I was feeling very, very depressed and suffocated, and it led me to a very dark place where ultimately, kind of skipping over some some details here and kind of a longer story, but ultimately I didn't want to be here anymore. I really was ready to just call it quits. I didn't want to, I mean, what was the point? And it was in that moment that I said kind of a last minute prayer, like my last effort. Like, I was just like, if something doesn't happen from this, then I can't hang on anymore. I need an answer. I need proof. I need guidance. And so I said a prayer, and I don't know that this necessarily is the right way to pray, but I was mad and I was upset, and I was like, why? Like, why is my life this way? Why is every time I try to do something good, it bombs in my face? What can I do to like make things better, for me and for other people? And when I do the things I like, how come I can't ever succeed? How come I can't ever make money? How come, it was a complaining prayer, but anyway, I said that last prayer just hoping for some kind of guidance. And minutes after, almost an hour after maybe, I had some friends reach out to me and ask me if I wanted to go for a McDonald's run. And I know it sounds goofy going from like a spiritual prayer and depression and all this stuff to McDonald's, but for me at the time that was a big deal because I had been saying no to going out with friends for months. So I was like, okay, this time I'm going to take them offering this experience, this outing with them as a sign, as an answer to my prayer. So I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to go with them to this McDonald's. And then from there, had a lot of fun, was smiling, beatboxed for my friends. Some of them filmed it And um, that video that one of my friends filmed, his name's Sean. We still talk literally like every day, which is cool, just having a best friend like that. But his video went viral, and it was of me beatboxing with a McDonald's cup, went on to get over 50, 60,000 views just in the first night. And then by the end of the week, it was over a couple million views, and it just kept soaring from there. And it crossed in 2017, it crossed 1 billion views streamed online. And so it kind of opened my eyes to the fact that, like, first of all, God is real. He answered my prayer. Um, I knew I wasn't supposed to go into nursing. I knew that I was supposed to pivot and make other changes in my life. And I knew that there was a never ending amount of people that I'm supposed to touch and influence and impact and help, that I wouldn't be able to do that if I threw in the towel, you know? So here I am, just out here doing my thing, trying to still do beatboxing, podcasting stuff, try to help people with their content, with whatever I can do to help them. So yeah.
I really appreciate you going into such deep detail on that. And for me, it does kind of remind me of there's this the thought from President Nelson, so of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. His first wife, Dancel, and Russell was having a really rough day, and he just had a long day and had been up all night, and then the patient still passed away, and he's like in his wife's arms, like crying and being like, why is this so difficult? Like, I can't do this. And she listened to him. She wasn't like, fighting him like, oh, you're such a wimp or whatever. She just let him cry it all out, and then she's like, okay, well, get back to work. And she also said, if you gave up now, others would have to painfully learn what you already know. And for me, that's a very powerful thought as far as like what I feel like I've learned about life. And I feel a need to share it, and an obligation, maybe not an obligation, the privilege to echo that out into the eternities, right? There's that quote that what we do for ourselves stays here, but what we do for others echoes into eternity. And I think so much of what you've done has echoed into eternity. There's people I've shared your podcast with, but hey, you need to check this out, because I've always felt more upbeat, and there's definitely times like God would reach out to me with like specific episodes. Like, I think, yeah, I could definitely go into it. I mean, I know Stu's hit me a lot, and also the one with the dating app, trying to remember what it was called, like Front Door or Doorstep.
Yeah, Doorstep with Bruce. Yeah.
Bruce Peck, yeah, those ones, like, there's unmistakable proof, at least for me personally, that this was God, like, reaching out, like, hey, just keep going, and even if it seems really, really difficult right now, just keep going and keep learning and learn from all these experiences, because these are going to add up, and you're going to be really thankful for all of this in the past. And I guess on a very micro level, I look back at me recording in some of my apartments in BOUI, and it looks super whack. It's like, wow, that is sad. Like, some of the webcams and stuff I use, but I'm like, I'm glad. I'm applauding Pass Down a little bit, like, yo, I'm glad you did that, because now it's ultimately brought me to where I am now. And yeah, I'm inspired by you. I'm sure I'll continue to be inspired by you and your faith, and thankful that you've lifted up your voice. And for anybody that's listening to this right now, dude, check out Upbeat with Parker Kane. Like, I think it's almost 200 episodes, and they're all like super, super high quality. Just the interviews and everything, they're super good. So
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. And I love what you said about starting in some of those apartments and stuff. I was there too, and you just learn and grow, and it's always about improving and about building. And um, yeah, it's about it's hard for us to remember, and it's really hard for me to remember this for myself personally, but focusing on enjoying the journey, and I know that sounds cliche too, especially when you hear it in a lot of like entrepreneurship podcasts or whatever, but Yeah, it's about the journey, man. I mean, it's kind of fun to look. It's cringy, but it's kind of fun to look back at like where you came from.
Yeah. Well, talking with you, Parker, has made me want to run through a brick wall, and I really appreciate that. Is there anything like that, anything else that you could share with people that are just getting out of college? Like I've been out of college a year, you've been out for a little longer than that. Anybody in that area or anybody still at BYUI? And also just how can we get a hold of you if we'd like to reach out, something we want to reach out to you?
Yeah, so how to get a hold of me, just my website. It's literally like the same across the board. My Instagram handle is my website, is my LinkedIn, is everything. So parkerkane.co is my website and Instagram and everything. So wherever you want to reach out to me, I'm always just a DM away. And I think, I mean, I might be kind of slow sometimes, but I do pretty well at getting back to people. I want to help. So when people ask me questions, I do what I can to help. Um, as far as last words, last advice, you know, for someone specifically getting out of college, maybe about to embark on a next level journey from BYU Idaho or something, I would just say take time initially for yourself, whether that be 3 days or a week or whatever. Take time to really just ponder and think about what you want, not what's expected, but what you want, regardless of how crazy it is. You know, I make weird noises with my mouth. I'm a beatboxer, you know, regardless of how crazy it is. Think about what you want. And even if it's not crystal clear, just try to make note of those little things that you want for your life and then go to work. That's it. Go to work, you know, do what you got to pay the bills. You know, Dallin mentioned a little bit earlier that we're Pizza Hut brothers. I worked at Pizza Hut, you know, I delivered pizzas. I also worked at Domino's. I've had a plethora of different kinds of jobs, just, you know, make ends meet, make sure I can cover the bills and things like that. But when I get off work, I go to work and I go to my podcast and I go to my business I'm trying to build right now, and I do research on, you know, latest trends on LinkedIn or YouTube or whatever. Like it kind of doesn't shut off. You just got to work even after work. So figure out what you want, go to work, make it happen. And kind of at the point where I'm at right now, I'm thinking about making that leap from a job into more of my own thing. And I think once people get to that point where they can make that leap, it's just about being brave enough to take the leap and put all of you into that thing that you're passionate about and try to make it your full time.
That's good. Yeah, I think, yeah, just, taking it a day at a time. And yeah, I couldn't have said any better. So I appreciate
And
you
I thought of
breaking that
just a
down.
couple more last words. Basically, also, I've mentioned it a couple times, which maybe is why I didn't get into it just now, but it's also not always about you, it's about who you can impact. So if you're not doing those things, you could not be impacting the people you're supposed to.
Yeah. Do you want to beatbox us out? Just like you've been watching Yield Today of Down Candland or something like that.
Yeah, sure. Hopefully it doesn't cut out. It might cut out, but we'll see. You've been watching and listening to Yield the podcast with Yield the day with Dallin Candland.
That's so sick. Just like way to go. I love that. It's just
Thank you, man.
it's a sick talent. And I've been trying to follow your footsteps of some talent. I like juggling. There's other writing and stuff, but we'll have to see
Nice.
what happens. We'll have to see what happens, man. I'm excited. I'm thankful for God. I'm thankful for you. You've been a great example to me for sure for a long time. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But everybody check out all the stuff from Parker. Do that. Do that. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks, Dallin. This was awesome.
You got it.